Close your eyes. Imagine standing on the banks of the Nile 3,500 years ago. You see the Great Pyramid gleaming in white limestone. It looks like a dream. Now, open them. If you were born here, you likely weren't the pharaoh. You were a farmer, battling parasites in the river mud, eating bread filled with sand that ground your teeth to the bone. In ancient Egypt, your birth was your destiny. Today, we're putting you into the social pyramid. This is the reality of wealth and power in the ancient world. You're born along the banks of the Nile River around 1400 BCE. The sun beats down mercilessly as your mother screams through labor in a mud brick home barely large enough to stand in. There's no doctor coming, no pain relief. Just a midwife with calloused hands who's delivered hundreds of babies and watched half of them die before their 5th birthday. Welcome to ancient Egypt, where your entire existence will be determined by a lottery you can't control. Let's say you're born into a peasant family. Congratulations, you just joined about 90% of the population. Your father works the fields owned by a local nobleman, and that's exactly what you'll be doing too. The romantic image of ancient Egypt, with its golden pyramids and powerful pharaohs, has absolutely nothing to do with your life. Your reality is dirt, sweat, and an endless cycle of back-breaking labor that will destroy your body decades before you die. Your day starts before dawn, not because you want it to, but because if you're not in the fields when the overseer arrives, you'll be beaten. The Nile's flooding pattern dictates everything. During inundation season, when the river swells and covers the farmland, you're conscripted into building projects, temples, tombs, monuments that will stand for thousands of years, built by people whose names no one will remember. You haul limestone blocks in the scorching heat, your hands bleeding through strips of cloth that pass for gloves. The supervisors carry sticks. They use them liberally. But let's talk about what you're actually eating, because your diet is shockingly monotonous. Bread and beer. That's it. That's basically your entire nutritional intake. The bread is coarse, filled with sand and grit from the grinding stones used to mill the grain. Every bite wears down your teeth. By the time you're 30, if you make it that far, your teeth will be ground to nubs. Dental abscesses are common. Imagine the worst toothache you've ever had. Then imagine having no way to fix it. No dentist, no antibiotics. Just constant throbbing pain until the infection either goes away or kills you. The beer isn't what you're thinking either. It's thick, nutritious, and weak. More like liquid bread than actual alcohol. You drink it because the water will make you sick. Everyone knows that, even if they don't understand why. The brewing process kills the bacteria that would otherwise give you dysentery. So you drink beer for breakfast, beer for lunch, beer for dinner. The children drink it too. There's no alternative. Healthcare doesn't exist in any form you'd recognize. You get sick, you either survive or you don't. There are physicians in Egypt, sure, but they serve the nobility. They're not making house calls to your mud brick hovel. When your younger sister develops a fever, your mother makes offerings to Sekhmet, the goddess of disease. She places amulets around your sister's neck. She recites prayers. Your sister dies anyway. Half your siblings will die before adulthood. This is so normal that parents don't even name their children immediately after birth. Why get attached? Let's say you somehow avoid death and make it to adulthood. You're now expected to marry and produce children who will work the same fields you work. Your marriage isn't about love. It's about economic survival and continuing the labor force. You marry a girl from a neighboring family. You've spoken to her maybe 3 times. She moves into your family's home because building a new structure is impossible. 3 generations live in 2 rooms. The social mobility you're wondering about? It doesn't exist. You were born a peasant. Your children will be peasants. Their children will be peasants. The Egyptian social structure is more rigid than you can imagine. There's no pulling yourself up by your bootstraps because you don't have bootstraps. You don't even have boots. You work barefoot in fields that flood annually, developing parasitic infections from wading through water filled with snail-borne diseases. Schistosomiasis turns your urine bloody. Your liver swells. Your stomach distends. This is just part of life. But here's what makes it truly suffocating. You can see the alternative. The nobleman who owns the land you work lives in a villa with multiple rooms, servants, and decorated walls. He eats meat regularly: beef, duck, fish. He drinks wine instead of beer. His children are healthy and educated. They'll never know what it feels like to go to bed hungry or wake up with their muscles screaming from yesterday's labor. The gap between your existence and theirs isn't just about wealth. It's about being treated as fundamentally different types of humans. Now imagine a different scenario. Imagine you're born into a family of scribes. Suddenly, everything changes. Your father teaches you to read and write hieratic script, the cursive version of hieroglyphs used for everyday documents. This skill, this ability to read and write, separates you from 90% of the population. You're not working in the fields. You're not hauling stones. You're sitting in the shade, recording tax collections, and managing inventories. Scribes are respected. There's an entire genre of Egyptian literature dedicated to explaining why being a scribe is superior to every other profession. These texts mock farmers, fishermen, and craftsmen. They describe manual labor as degrading and painful. They're not wrong, but they're also propaganda designed to make you grateful for your position. And you are grateful because you've seen the alternative. You've watched your childhood friends break their backs in the fields while you learn to hold a reed brush. Your diet improves dramatically. You still eat bread and beer, but you also get vegetables: onions, leeks, lettuce, cucumbers, sometimes even fish. Your teeth still wear down from the sandy bread, but not as quickly. You might actually keep most of them into middle age. The dental abscesses still happen, but less frequently. You're not immune to disease, but you have access to physicians who might actually help, rather than just praying to gods while you die. Yet even as a scribe, you're still watching the nobles from below. You watch them feast while you calculate their grain stores. You see their children playing while you record their tax exemptions. You're better off than the peasants, infinitely better off, but you're still not one of them. So what if you won the birth lottery? What if you're born into nobility? You wake up in a bed, an actual bed, with a wooden frame and a mattress stuffed with reeds. Not the floor, not a mud brick platform. A bed. Your room has plastered walls decorated with painted scenes of gardens and animals. There's furniture, chairs, tables, storage chests made from imported wood. You own more objects before age 5 than a peasant will touch in their entire life. Your diet isn't about survival, it's about pleasure. Breakfast includes bread made from finely sifted flour without the sand that destroys everyone else's teeth. You eat honey, dates, figs. You drink milk. For lunch, there's roasted duck or goose. Dinner brings beef, something most Egyptians taste maybe twice in their lives. You have access to imported foods, wine from the Mediterranean, spices from Punt. Your body develops differently because you're not malnourished. You grow taller. Your bones are denser. Your teeth, while still affected by sugar from honey and dates, aren't ground down to nubs by age 30. Healthcare? You have personal physicians who studied at temple schools. They know hundreds of treatments. Some actually work. Honey for wounds, which we now know has antibacterial properties. Willow bark for pain, which contains the same compound as aspirin. They can set broken bones and perform basic surgery. Will they save you from cancer or infection? No, but your survival odds are dramatically higher than anyone below your class. Here's the thing about being noble in ancient Egypt. You're not just wealthy, you're connected to divine power. The pharaoh is a living god, and you're part of his administration. You're not governing by consent of the governed, you're maintaining cosmic order. Ma'at, the Egyptian concept of truth, justice, and balance, flows through the pharaoh to you, and you impose it on everyone else. Your education begins early. tutors teach you to read and write, both hieratic and hieroglyphic script. You learn mathematics, astronomy, religious texts. You study the classics, ancient wisdom literature that's already 1,000 years old by the time you're reading it. You're being prepared not just to manage estates, but to participate in governing an empire. And yes, it's an empire. Even in periods Egyptians call decline, we're talking about a civilization controlling hundreds of miles of the Nile Valley and dominating trade routes throughout the eastern Mediterranean. You might serve as a provincial governor, a temple administrator, a military commander, a royal architect. Your marriage is political. Your father negotiates with another noble family. The alliance strengthens both houses. You might meet your future wife once before the wedding. But here's what's different. She has rights. Egyptian women, especially noble women, could own property, initiate divorce, and conduct business. Your wife isn't your property. Legally, she's almost your equal. Practically, society still favors you, but compared to other ancient civilizations, Egyptian women have remarkable autonomy. You have servants, lots of them. They cook, clean, manage your household, and work your estates. These aren't slaves in the later Greek or Roman sense. Most are paid workers, though paid might mean receiving food rations rather than currency. Some are peasants fulfilling labor obligations. The distinction matters less to them than you'd think. They're still working your land, serving your interests, and their children will do the same. Your life expectancy is maybe 50 years if you're lucky. That's double what a peasant might achieve. You'll probably die from infection, cancer, or heart disease. The same diseases that kill everyone else, just later. Your mummification will be elaborate, expensive. Your tomb will have painted walls showing you in the afterlife, enjoying eternal feasts and hunting in eternal marshes. You're buying immortality, or at least the appearance of it. But here's the uncomfortable reality. Your privilege is built on a system that grinds millions of people into dust. The bread you eat comes from fields worked by people who can barely feed themselves. The monuments you commission are built by workers who die in the process. The gold you wear was mined by expeditions where half the participants didn't return. You're not necessarily cruel. You might even be kind to your immediate servants. But the system requires their suffering for your comfort. Social mobility exists, but it's rare. A talented scribe might rise to become a noble administrator. A soldier might distinguish himself and receive land grants. But we're talking about tiny percentages. The overwhelming majority of Egyptians die in the same class they were born into. So what's it really like being born in ancient Egypt? It depends entirely on which family claims you. As a peasant, you work yourself to death by 40, watching your children face the same fate. As a scribe, you escape physical labor but remain forever below the true elite. As a noble, you live in comfort built on a foundation of other people's suffering. The pyramids you've seen in photos? Architectural marvels built by a civilization that treated human labor as its most abundant resource. The golden treasures in museums? Bought with taxes collected from people who had nothing. The wisdom literature praising Egyptian civilization? Written by the tiny minority who benefited from it. Ancient Egypt lasted 3,000 years. That's longer than the entire span from ancient Rome to today. Generation after generation born into roles they couldn't escape, maintaining a system that seemed eternal and unchangeable until suddenly it wasn't. Human bones in the ground tell the real story. Spines compressed from carrying stones. Teeth ground to powder from sandy bread. Skulls showing chronic anemia. Bodies buried without ceremony in shallow graves. That's ancient Egypt for most people. The rest is just monuments built on top of their graves. The next time you see images of ancient Egypt, those gleaming temples and golden masks, remember what they actually represent. They're receipts for human suffering on a scale that's hard to comprehend. Every block in every pyramid, every gold leaf on every statue, every painted wall in every tomb, paid for by people who never got to see them finished, who never got their names recorded, who ground themselves down to nothing so that pharaohs could pretend they'd live forever. Would you have survived being born there? Statistically, probably not. Half of all children died before age 5. Of those who made it, most were dead by 30. Your teeth would rot, your spine would compress. Your body would host parasites that modern medicine eliminated decades ago. You'd work every day of your short life, and your reward would be just enough food to do it again tomorrow. But here's what really matters. This wasn't some alien civilization with values we can't understand. These were humans exactly like us, born into a system that told them this was natural, inevitable, the way things had always been and always would be. The nobles believed they deserved their comfort. The scribes believed they'd earned their position. The peasants believed the gods had assigned them their role. Everyone accepted it because questioning the system wasn't just dangerous, it was literally unthinkable. That 3,000-year-old civilization, with all its monuments and achievements, was built on the assumption that most humans existed to serve the few, and everyone involved believed that was just how reality worked.